We wish you a fabulous day as we go live on Facebook here with the Tax Answers Advisor. This is Marcelino Dodge. We're at show 47, and we really appreciate this. I always find it fascinating, a show that talks about U.S. taxes, but is listened to worldwide. Not just the U.S., areas like China, throughout Europe. It's just amazing. It amazes me that when I see these reports that say people, but maybe it's other people that are for some reason are interested in U.S. taxes and say, we're certainly great and we certainly appreciate it. And it's so nice that we can be available on various platforms like iHeart and Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we can reach out to such a broad audience. And with this, we keep in mind as we go through today's, boy, that frog is trying to find me today, but we'll work through him. But as we work through this and talk to you about taxes and today's topic about helping your business get a little more traction, we always invite ones to schedule a free mutual exploration meeting with us. And that's with me, Marcelino Dodge. And see, what we do is we take a look at our tax planning techniques, see what we do, examine your needs, and see if there's a fit. And in this 1 hour session, we determine that if it works, we come together to help you either individually or with your business to help with taxes throughout the year. And so feel free to give me a contact. That's a success, cashtracksfinancial.com. You can call me. It's 844-394-4287. Of course, visit our website, which is cashtracksfinancial.com. And that's, once again, you can schedule your free mutual exploration session. Today's topic is going to be about gaining business traction and turning a vision into a reality. And to do so, we're going to have Sharon Means, a CPA, join us. And what's I really enjoy about this, Sharon is a fractional integrator for companies. And right now you're probably thinking, well, what is a fractional integrator? Well, we're going to find out, because companies, there's a great system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, which is based on a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. Sharon helps them to implement the visionaries of a business, which is usually the owner or CEO, helps them with strategic planning. And also, as an integrator, she's in a position to help them get stuff done. So the whole company can be rowing. And I like this illustration about rowing, because if you're on a boat and everybody's rowing differently, your boat just goes in a circle. And we don't like boats going in a circle. So get everybody rowing in the company in the same direction. And we're going to see how this is done through weekly and quarterly and even annual meetings. Now, wait a minute, we're going to say, oh, we hate meetings. Well, meetings with a purpose can be very productive. And that's what we're going to see how that works today. And that's with the leadership team, collaborating goals, also known as rocks in this system, and see how those can be properly implemented so that the company can reach what their desirable goals are. So I'm going to say, hey, welcome there, Sharon. We really appreciate having you on the program today. It's going to be just real exciting to get to discuss how the EOS system works in there. How are you doing there?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I love to talk about EOS, and I just, love talking to you.
Okay, well, it's been a great initial conversation here before we started, and so we're going to really delve into some of this pretty deeply here, because we see many businesses have frustrations. The owners are very frustrated. They feel like they've hit a wall, and this is true whether we're in a situation like we are today, where many businesses are struggling, or even pre-pandemic, there was a lot of systems and people just having this. But yet, even with current circumstances, with some adjustments, a business can gain momentum, can seamlessly run, and not get so caught up in the details, because those details are basically what can drag us all down if we're not careful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So then, Sharon, let's delve into this a little bit. Can you please explain to us exactly what EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, is?
Sure. So like you had said, EOS is based on a book, Traction by Gino Wickman. He's actually since wrote many other books about EOS and using it, but that's the main one. And EOS is just a complete set of simple concepts and practical tools that you can use so that you can help entrepreneurs get what they really want out of their business. And like you had said, getting everybody, the ducks in a row, getting everybody to row in the same direction, It's just about getting a clear vision and working with the entrepreneur, usually in the case, it'll be the visionary of the company, to get that implemented. And that's what I use EOS for. And I'm the integrator that helps him get stuff done that they need to in the company.
Mhm. Also, kind of, oh, okay, we'll get this a little bit later, but just can you give me a brief, just something brief, exactly what an integrator is, just to kind of, so we can build on that.
Yeah, so in a company, as Gino points out, there is always a visionary, and the visionary is, you know them immediately. They're the people that have a million ideas, and they love to move the company forward, but they're not very good in the implementation of those ideas. They might have one idea, they go to a conference, for example, they get all fired up, they come back to your company, they are like, okay, we're going to do this. This is such a great thing, but they don't have the capacity to actually implement or look into that. So that's what an integrator does. The integrator is kind of the glue of the organization. Mm-hmm. They are the people that get things done. So when a visionary comes to them, they said, this is something we want to do. Instead of just, saying, oh yeah, of course we're going to do that. Let's, talk about it at our leadership team. I run the leadership team meetings. We get buy-in from the rest of the leadership team on things, as well as, running just a lot of the processes and making sure that people are held accountable to what they say they're going to do. So that's really what the integrator does. They're kind of the the person that you turn to when you need to have something, done, and you're going to get it done, and that they're going to help you with it.
Now, one thing I've encountered, and you probably have done this too, is that you have an entrepreneur, a visionary that has a great vision, and all the points you made are very valid, and I really appreciate them. One area that I often see overlooked, because that's what this program talks about, is taxes.
Absolutely.
So how often have you so far in just discussing the EOS system encountered ones who maybe haven't taken taxes into consideration in what they're doing?
Yeah, that is a big consideration. And what you find is when you're going through the EOS process, it kind of firms up other parts of the organization and other departments. So typically what I'll find is that the financial information is not up to what it needs to be. We do within EOS, one of the parts is that you need to have like a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. And because sometimes they don't have the financials to even back up any of that, or even know what they're supposed to be forecasting out in that. That's the first step in figuring out, okay, hey, you guys have a bit of a broke down process with your accounting department, and let's see what we need to do there. Because then, of course, that goes into tax. I mean, if they're not, formally compiling out some financial statements that make sense, that somebody can use, then they have no idea. They're just running by the seat of their pants. And, even like your commercial stated in the beginning, it's like, well, if they just wait till the end of the year and they just throw some stuff at the tax accountant, that's not exactly a prudent way to run a business. So getting the whole system in place, making sure that they have their financials in order is step one to a lot of the things in EOS. And then that in turn helps, hey, we should probably have a conversation with the tax accountant, and let's bring them in on a quarterly basis, or send them things, because now we have it. We're not just, throwing some stuff together at the last minute.
Oh, yes. And that's certainly in the long run, taking the tax into consideration, which in the 20 plus years I've been working on taxes, sadly, that's often the last thing people think about in their business. They don't even think about, okay, what's this going to affect the taxes, or what do I need to do to make sure things are reported correctly? What records do I need to keep? Those are so often overlooked. And that's just a part of the overall business, but it's very, very essential part of it there. And part of the EOS, which is, as you've already stated, I really like how it helps to solve some of those issues, because once again, going forward, unfortunately, some businesses have failed simply because they didn't take the tax part properly or keep good record keeping and so on. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a big part of it. And, like I said, that's one of the things that you look at the company, but that's a big part of EOS is one of the components is a VTO, which is your vision traction organizer. And within there, you have to have a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, a 10-year target. So like if you don't have any idea what your financials are or what you did last year to kind of forecast it out, then you are in no position to adequately figure out what your tax situation is, what you should be doing. So that definitely plays a huge part.
Yes. So then as we want to fix not just the tax situation, but the overall situation of the business there. So how do we go, or what's the process that a firm's going to do to implement the EOS there? How does that come into play?
Yeah, so typically you can start, if you're going to do work with an implementer, and an implementer is just like an outside coach that has been certified by EOS, and they will come in and they will facilitate the setup of your EOS structure. Or you can, self-implement if you've got a strong integrator that you want to use, or, typically I do fractional integrating because there's like, I think, 50 visionaries to every one integrator or some ridiculous amount of number. So not everyone has an integrator at their company, but if you do and you want to self-implement, you can do that as well. And that's just following the notes in the books, the attraction. And then typically what you do is we have there's a 90-minute meeting with the implementer just to see if this is something even you want to go forward with. And then if that is something that a firm wants to go forward with, then you have a focus day and a vision day building 1 and vision day building 2. And within those 3 days, and they're 30 days apart, so it's the timeline's about 90 days to set it up. It is getting all of the information that you're going to need. I just mentioned the vision traction organizer, and within that, figuring out your company's core values, figuring out your company's core focus. Those are big, some companies have that. Some companies know, innately, this is what we stand for. But that's a really good process to go through because it kind of ferrets out a lot of things on the leadership team for how they see your company. And the leadership team, I should back up too, is just made up of kind of the people that are accountable in the company for different seats on the accountability chart. So accountability chart's kind of like the org chart of the company, but within the accountability chart, you not only list, Marcelino, he's in the tax seat, but you list what they're responsible for and what they're accountable for. So within that, then the high level people are on the leadership team. So they're the people that are responsible for the finance or the sales and marketing, accounting, customer success, operations, that kind of thing. So within those people then get together and form your leadership team. They're usually anywhere from 5 to 8 people. And they will then go through this process of setting up EOS with either the implementer or self-implementing. And you come up with, I said, like the core values, the core focus, your 3 uniques of a business. What makes you unique from a standpoint of, there's a million accounting firms out there, but why would someone choose you? Or what's a good fit? And your target customer, your target niche, your demographics, all of that is covered in this 3-day session with, 3 days being spread out. And then also, like I said before, you've got to get your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan, your 1-year plan. And that's so that we can chunk it down so that you can get a quarterly plan together. And so you want to say, okay, this is what I want to do for the year, but what does that mean quarterly? So then that's what we're going to put all in our VTO. And that's just to get set up. And then, within EOS, there's 6 components that we're going to work through. Vision, which is primarily like your VTO. What do we want to do? What's the overall goals of the company?
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest one I see is people. And it's for various reasons, even before we had some issues with hiring and whatnot. But people make the company. And if you have an accountability chart, when we start with that, and you
Mm-hmm.
have people who are not in the right, we call it right people, right seats.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do they have to be a good person, you like working with them. Everyone likes Joe. He's a great person. But is he in the right seat?
Mm-hmm.
He's just because Joe has an affinity for marketing or, customer service, does he really, want to be there? So we call it the GWC, which is get it, want it, and have
Mm-hmm.
capacity to do it. And in that first couple of sessions, that's the kind of thing that you'll go through. You'll find the accountability chart. And it's hard. There are
Mm-hmm.
people that are very fine people, and you just don't have room for them in your company. And you will have to, find either other things in the company for them or work out where they're, no longer with you. But I found that is a really powerful thing within a company, because there's people that are just holding a firm, a company back, and to kind of, figure out who
Mm-hmm.
those people are and what. And sometimes it's, working with them. Sometimes they don't get it, want it, and have capacity to do it at the beginning. But we give 90 days, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
roadmap of how we're going to help them. Because you can't just say, well, you need to be more organized. Well, how can you give people tools
Mm-hmm.
so that they can be more organized, or so they
Mm-hmm.
can do things? You can't just snap their fingers and they're a different person. So it's helping everyone through. And then, like I said, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But as a big part, I think, of EOS and how just it comes together and it really helps a firm out.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I was thinking about here as you were speaking about it, for the listeners, that what size of companies are we talking about here? Do you really work with here? Or is this most practical for?
Yeah, I would say the size of company is, you probably want a good 20 or 25 people in the firm, somewhere around there, for a good size leadership team. Now, I've done smaller companies. I've self-implemented. We actually had an implementer, but Redmond Accounting is another position that I hold. And so there, we only have 8 or 9 people. So the leadership team is smaller, but you can work it out. It doesn't have to be. But then I think it tops out, if you have around 200 employees, it's usually going to top out that EOS is probably not a right fit for you as the company. There's just too many working parts in that way. But so that's usually around the target size.
Okay. So anyway, this is a system that advantage wise is really designed for the smaller company, ranging from
Yes.
about 20 to about
Correct.
up to about 200 from what you're saying.
Yes.
Which there's a lot of companies that fall within that.
Absolutely.
Because the statistics reveal that small business still is the biggest employer in this country.
Absolutely.
And so how many companies, I mean, I wish I had the numbers, but how many companies fall within that range? There's probably a bunch.
Mm-hmm. I would say that's probably a big segment.
I mean, I know I work with a few companies that are just over 20
Mm-hmm.
in their size. So and that's just in my little area where I work. That's pretty much about the maximum. And there's maybe 1 or 2 that maybe have up to 100 or 200. So that's very, very good to have a good system that can be put into place to help such companies that really,
Right.
really need to help through these meetings with this EOS system. So you've gone through and described very nicely the process that they go through to implement it. These
Yep.
like the 3 days you talk about, value, focus, and vision days. I think I got
Yes.
those there, and those
Yeah.
are each about 30 days apart.
Yes.
So you set like a vision day up. Okay, this is where we're going to go. Then 30 days later, we're going to focus, and then 30 days later, we're going to.
Well, it's actually focus day and then vision day 1 and 2. But I mean,
okay.
yeah. So
okay.
basically, focus day is the beginning. It's
Okay.
where we're trying to implementing a lot of new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then vision day 1 and 2, it's
Okay.
breaking up the VTO and that, by vision day 2, you're kind of like circling back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
Do
makes
you
sense
need,
there.
yeah, yeah.
I wanted to make sure on that there. And during the part of that, that's where you're getting the GWC going through there.
Correct.
And then
Yes.
figuring out this is getting basically the right people in the right places.
Yes. And even on the leadership team, I found sometimes, so everybody will say, well, I mean, we have to have Wally. He has to come on the leadership team. So then he comes and he doesn't contribute anything. He doesn't really want to be there. He kind of drags down the leadership team. So it even has a GWC for the people that are sitting there at the leadership team. They have to want to be there. It's it's a time commitment. It's, committing to the business. It's committing to being, a little bit above yourself. So if, I've had people come to the leadership team and all they really want to talk about is what pertains to them. That's not really a good mindset. You need to want to be better than yourself, and you want more for the firm than you want just, personally.
Yes. And certainly give a good contribution there, but of course have a good balance.
Absolutely.
At the same time, but yet have a certain commitment to the business within balance, that you want to help the business to succeed. And to do that, of course, you got to get the right people in the right places.
Yep.
To go right along with that. And
Absolutely.
so as we go through that, so then what then do we look at as far as the timeline goes? Now we've gotten the process. So what's our timeline like? We talked about like the first 90 days with your 3 days. So then as we press on forward, what happens with our timeline then?
So from the initial 90 days, then you're going to want to, we do what we call a level 10 meeting, and that is weekly. So you take the things that you've learned, you take your VTO, and now we're going to have a 90-minute meeting once a week with the leadership team. And we're going to go over everything in the VTO and make sure that we have set what we want and then implement it. So for example, we would have things for the quarter that we would want to accomplish. Those are what you alluded to before. They're called rocks or goals. And that's a big part of it is, like I had mentioned earlier, sometimes you have a visionary and they agree to everything. All the rocks are set for the quarter. We're going to look into a new CRM system, or we're going to, try to get some processes in place for HR, an employee manual, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden the visionary comes in and says, well, I think we need to, implement a new phone system. And we need, they'll just come up with this new idea. And it's like that we have, the reason we set these goals is this is what we decided were the important things for the quarter. So right now we're going to focus on those, and there can be things that come up throughout the quarter, but we need to really focus on what we said we were going to focus on, because we said that's the best way for us to hit our sales goals, our measurables, the things that we've decided in the VTO are important to us, our quarterly goals. So we set up the rocks to kind of support those. And like I said, we meet once a week, 90 days. We go over what rocks we've done. And then I use something to do the L10 meetings. It's called 90IO. And it's an app that kind of runs through the meeting cadence. And then they actually have timers. You can actually, so it'll say like, okay, we're done with this now. You can move to the next section. So keeping people on track, and 90-minute meetings, they start on time and they end on time. So there's no like, oh, it's sometimes you go to a meeting and it says 90 minutes, but it's a 3-hour meeting, or we're not going to start on time. So why bother getting there? And this is a very regimented, like the leadership team knows, we start on time, we end on time. And then, like I said, we go over the rocks, and those are set at the focus, the vision building day 2. And then from the rocks, you can put little like milestones underneath it. So if we're going to implement a new CRM system, what does that look like? Well, maybe the first step would be getting some quotes. What CRM systems are out there? What we want to look at? Maybe, what do we want to get out of it? What are the things that are most important? Does it have to integrate with QuickBooks? Does it have to, integrate with our, legal software that we have? And then milestones are cool because then they show up and they tell a leadership team, not only that there is a rock, but then what's being done on that rock, and is it being done on time? Because a lot of times people will think, well, it's a quarterly meeting.
Mhm.
So natural tendency is, well, I'll just wait till the end of the quarter, day 45 or 55, whatever, and I'll start working on it then. And then they realize, oh, I'm not going to be able to get it done. And so the end of the quarter, they've been saying all along that they're on track, because that's what you say, you're either on track with your rock or off track.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden they're not. They haven't completed it. So the milestones help us say, hey, you know what? You said you were going to do milestone 1 about 3 weeks ago. It doesn't look like you got to it yet. Are you doing okay? Because if not, what
Mhm.
we do is we as a leadership team, we move that down to what we call an issue. And then
Mhm.
we talk about it and say, well, why aren't you getting that done? Is
Mhm.
it because you've got too many other things on your plate? Is it because you just don't don't know where to go? So maybe we can help you with that. So again, kind of jumping around, but the
Mhm.
L10, they go through not only the rocks, but then something called a scorecard. And that's
Mhm.
part of the data component of EOS. So you can decide that you want to have a revenue goal, and you can decide you want to do these rocks. But what is really going to tell us that we're on target? What are the KPIs? What are the numbers that we can track so that we know? If you want to get a revenue goal of $500,000, how many leads would that take? How many people
Mhm.
have to sign up this quarter? So those are the things that on your scorecard you would track. And then again, once you go through the scorecard and you see things that are not lining up. So if you're saying that you need to get 10 leads a week, for example, but you're consistently only getting 1 or 2.
Mhm.
Okay, well, what do we need to do? Going backwards, where do leads come from? Or we need to do something with that. So
Mhm.
that's the scorecard component. And then from there, you have to-dos that you've been assigned. So every week you go through what you've been
Mhm.
assigned from last week. And there are things that, maybe came out of an issue, because then the last part of the L10 is discussing the issues.
Mhm.
And I think the great part about 90 is when you're going through your week, you can come up with something that you think, the leadership team needs to talk about. Hey, we've got this customer and they just seem to always be complaining. What do we need to do? What do we need to
Mhm.
focus on with them? So you can go into 90 through the week and kind of type in your issue, put it on the leadership team. And then that way, when you have your leadership team meeting, you've got a bunch of issues that, you don't have
Mhm.
to remember or come up with. So it's a real nice little tool to keep everything all in one place. And again,
Mhm.
like you were saying, rowing all in the same direction, just keeping everyone on the same page as well, which
Mhm.
is another EOS term
Yeah.
that they have.
Another thought I was thinking here as we go through this is, how has this worked with different types of business? I mean, we got service businesses, got
Yep.
retail businesses, got wholesale businesses, got manufacturing businesses. What have you seen with the different types of businesses operating, how this has worked
I mean,
in
I've seen it
implementing?
run through the gambit. I mean, it runs through all of those businesses,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, it's the same types of things that
Mhm.
every business needs to go through. Coming up with what you as a company want to accomplish. And then, it just depends. Maybe the scorecard looks a little different for a retail
Mhm.
business versus a service industry. What are they tracking? What are they keeping? What's important to them?
Mhm.
But most of the things are very, very similar. They're, making sure your goals are in line, making sure your leadership team knows what the goals are. So it really doesn't matter the type of business. It really does work for just about anything.
Mhm. And you talked about the issues, how you'll take your data and you'll identify the issue, which is interesting because in the components it mentions that, um, and I think you mentioned these about identify, discuss, and
Yes.
solve those issues.
Called
How important
IDS.
does that work, like through the weekly or 90-day meetings, to make sure we get that done?
Yeah, so that's one of the most important things when you have an issue come up, and typically for a weekly meeting, everyone kind of votes on the top 3, because you're not going to be able to necessarily get through every issue
Mhm.
at every meeting. So we're going to pick our top 3 issues, and then we just start from the top. And the person that has asked about the issue, they describe what they want from the leadership team. Sometimes the issue is they just want feedback. Sometimes the issue is they need to solve it and, get an actual concrete, maybe a to-do or whatnot. And sometimes they just don't know what they need, and they're just kind of bringing up a problem that they see. And now we're going to discuss it as a leadership team. So, part of that is everyone on the leadership team should have a say. Everyone can participate and decide what we want to do with that issue. And then the solving part, a lot of the time, comes with, okay, who is accountable for that rock, or that issue. So who's going to own it, and who's going to make sure, based on their to-dos or whatnot, that next week we're going to have some resolution on that issue, or at least getting to a resolution.
And so as you go through this process, the meetings, like you talk about the weekly meetings, are these weekly meetings an ongoing practice, or is there a time when the weekly meetings we ever stop having weekly meetings?
No, we have weekly meetings with the leadership team, and then it even kind of cascades down a little bit, so that the different departments can also have their own L10 meetings. So not necessarily does everyone need to talk about everything that's happening in the finance team or the marketing team. So they'll also have, sometimes they're 90 minutes. They don't need to be, if they're going to just be a department meeting, maybe they're just 30 minutes, but it's also a way. And then those department meetings can then kind of roll up into the leadership meeting, so that maybe they've seen something. But I really typically, and I know, like you had said before, we don't want any more meetings. This isn't but this has an agenda. This has a time frame. And there are things that we get solved in that meeting that would probably take, because what will generally happen is somebody raises an issue and they're like, okay, we should gather everyone, that day or the next day. And it's just a lot of like little meetings and a lot of just unprepared, unscripted, off the cuff kind of things, where this is, I think a lot of times, if you're going to meet once a week, you save it for that once a week, you put it in the issues, and then we can discuss it. And so it actually is a little bit of a time saver, and then it kind of focuses people to just, get things done in that meeting and not continue to drag it out.
So it's important. So then these meetings are a regular part of business operations. And as you mentioned, some departments may have not necessarily a 90-minute structured meeting, maybe only 30-minute structured meeting, depending on the needs of the department. But then your leadership team having the 90-minute meeting, it's not just what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it's not just come in with what you are and we're going to discuss whatever. But no, it's these particular items are going to be discussed. These items are going to be discovered. Now, the issues that you talk about, you vote for the top 3. So sometimes some issues you're prioritizing them, obviously.
Yes.
So some issues may get moved from one week and they may become one of the top 3 the next week then.
Correct. It depends. And then sometimes they just solve themselves, like okay, and then the other component of that is sometimes, like I had said before, the visionary will come to us and they'll say, oh, we'd like to look into a new CRM system. And I'm like, well, that really wasn't part of our rocks for this quarter. I'm like, well, how about we park that in long-term issues, so that maybe next quarter we can look at it. So that's another component. Sometimes there are things that it's an issue, but maybe it's not an issue for this quarter. Maybe a new HR person to hire is not this quarter. Maybe we need to look into that. So that's another component. You can then move them not only to 1 week to the next, but you can move them, because then the next set of meetings that you have quarterly meetings. In the quarterly meeting, it recaps everything that happened in the quarter. You're going to find out, what happened. Did we meet our goals? Did everyone complete their rocks? We discuss all of that in the 90-minute in the quarterly meeting, and it's a 1-day meeting, typically off-site. We like to get people outside of the office so that they're not distracted, pulled back into things. Typically, if I've ever had one in an office, you break and then you can't find someone because they've gone off. So we typically try to have them off-site. And, or, in the last couple of years, it's been virtual as well, when we can't be together. So, and then you not only go through all of that, but then we decide, okay, what are the next quarter goals? What are the next rocks that we want to accomplish? And we use that list of issues, maybe issues that haven't gotten solved in the quarter, maybe issues that we move to long-term. And from there, we come up with a whole new set of rocks, a whole new set of scorecard, measurables, all that kind of jazz. And then we move on again to do the L10s. And then we conclude the year. It's a 2-day annual meeting where we go through all of the things that we need to for gearing up for the next year. What is our, forecast going to look like? What is our goals going to look like? What do we want to accomplish for the whole year? Because then, of course, then we break it up quarterly so that we say, okay, well, if we're going to have this annual goal, what do we need to do quarterly to keep on track? It's really about, the small little steps that one takes, because a lot of times I've sat in meetings before and they'll say the forecast is going to be $1 billion next year. And everyone says, okay, great. And then you don't meet again. You don't really have any, follow up. There's no forecast. There's no how we're going to get there. It's just like somebody just throws a number out and then everybody just goes, sure. Okay. And then, next year you meet and they're like, oh yeah, we didn't make that number. Well, that's because you're not focusing on it every day and you don't have it in front of you, what you need to accomplish. It's like, it's just a goal that doesn't have any structure to it.
And that's the biggest reason why ones usually don't reach set goals, because there is no structure. The plan isn't in place and they have a lofty goal. And all of us are guilty of that at one point or another.
Sure.
Of that. So it's important to work on implementing those and then following up with it. Now, another area that I have seen has become important just in my own place, which I have fewer than 10 employees, but still, and I can even see it more so, is one of those components is about the processes.
Yes.
In there.
Yes.
They're about identifying them and then documenting them. And I mean, I do tax returns and I have people that assist me in doing so, but I've learned over the years that if you don't have those processes documented down, things get missed, things get lost, people get mad at you, which in my case, I want to avoid. So I've been working at better documenting certain processes within the office.
Are you using anything specific to document?
I'm building me a book right now of my tax processes there.
Okay.
That I've been building on slowly through the years. I just started it like within the last 6 months. I've been working with another system designed more for my size of business, similar to this, but yet it gave me some good, nice templates to be able to document, okay, this is what you do at the beginning of the day. This is what you do at the close of the day. This is how you do the file cabinet security, because I'm very secure on all my documents. So I make sure that process is documented, and I'm slowly building that up within my own business, because I recognize, I've been complaining about why these people don't do this, but wait a minute, I'm the one at fault because I didn't put these things down, these steps for them to be able to follow. Because I can sit there and tell them how to do it, which is fine. But how many of us always remember every step? We don't.
Never.
I never
completely agree with you. We at the accounting firm use something called Arrow Workflow for our accounting system because it's just invaluable for so many reasons that you highlighted. And again, Arrow and 90, I'm not affiliated. I don't make any money on it. So, look into it if you'd like. But the biggest things is, like you said, you can tell somebody how to do it, but that's not scalable. So you could tell one of your employees how to do it, but then you hire another employee and then you think, oh, well, they'll tell them how to do that. Well, that's not exactly always the case. So if you have written processes down, you or if somebody's out for extended period of time, so with this COVID that we've had, people have been out of the office. They need to take time off for obvious reasons. And now what happens to their work? Well, if you have processes in place, anyone can step in. and
Mhm.
say, oh, okay, we have to do the sales tax return, or we have
Mhm.
to,
Yeah.
file a quarterly, it's like everything's
Yes,
right there. I mean, sales tax
exactly.
is like one of the biggest things, I think, because you do sales tax so infrequently. It's not a thing that's like, your
Mhm.
daily part of your business. So, and if you're filing multi-state, okay, this one you need to log in to this site and enter this number, and you get it from this. And so it's
Mhm.
just
Yes,
kind of the
exactly.
best. It's invaluable. I mean, I don't know how companies run without having
Mhm.
a lot of their core processes. And in the EOS, they want you to have 80% of the 20% of the best, the biggest things that you need to have
Mhm.
documented.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's not all the minutia. I mean, which is great if you want to, but that's, what we're trying to strive
Yeah.
for when we're
Mhm.
getting started, is that you just
Mhm.
want your big core processes, and not only
Mhm.
documented, but used.
Mhm.
How many times does someone document a process and they say, well, I put it in the file, I put it in a Google Drive, or I put it in one box, or, well, nobody knows about it, or no one goes there to
Mhm.
look at it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if it's not being used and updated, because
Mhm.
sometimes, you get a process and then they change the website, or now, you also have to include, sales tax also includes another component of the sales. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I've been using, because I got that one component I described you, but then I got another component that's more just operational things
mhm.
within operations. Then I've been using a system uh, for about a year and a half now that's been working out well, called Tax Dome, that helps out with
Okay.
the client specific tasks, like what you mentioned, the sales
Oh,
tax,
nice.
the
Yeah.
tax return, the monthly
hmm
financials. And
Yep.
I've been slowly, even I've been gradually improving the processes in that. I mean, because I'm guilty of this. Like I just run right through it, not think about each of the steps that we have to take, that I have to train somebody to take, that they're just not going to know. Okay, you got to go here for this password, you got to go for this password,
hmm
or then this is the
Yep.
step to go and complete the sales tax return, or
Yes,
this is where you got to
absolutely.
enter it, this is where you got to save it. And see, I'm just sitting here thinking these are the processes I got to train and keep in mind. And then we start looking at a company that has between 20 and 200 employees. How much more important is it to have these
Right.
processes set up and
It's
documented?
so important. And because, when you have a big problem in the company, it's typically like a process problem. It's, oh, the process broke down. They didn't follow the process. They didn't complete the task like they were supposed to. So that is a big component of, issues that we typically solve, is that, just making sure that, and like updating them. Sometimes they don't work anymore, and you need
Mhm.
to, revisit. So yeah, absolutely.
And certainly as you help them update those processes, this is another thought that came to mind. Some of those businesses could be affected by OSHA,
Yes,
and by getting those
absolutely.
processes updated and properly described will help them be probably more compliant with OSHA, I would imagine.
Yes, I would, yeah, absolutely. You'd have to, I mean, that's part of it, is making sure that where are your documentation, where is your process? So absolutely would help.
Yeah, especially those who have warehouse workers or some type of
hmm
manufacturing, and you just got to make sure all those are properly documented. And so it's good that all of these processes are done. And so these steps that we've gone through about having the vision, the people, the data, the issues, the
Yep.
processes there, those are all vitally important, because that last one about finally gaining the traction.
Is everything that you've just mentioned. It's getting all of that together and then putting it into place, like
Mhm.
creating a plan. Because that's what you want to do. You want to get traction in your business. You want to go forward. They have a quote where it's like, if a lot of people just have a flashlight and they're just, it's like milling all around, the light isn't focused. But if everyone can just focus,
Mhm.
it's like it's a much stronger beam of light. And that's really what this does. It's like, okay, getting everyone on the same page, rowing in the same direction of what they want to do.
Mhm. And so as you look at this, I know we've covered this very nicely getting there. So then just to kind of, how would you nicely summarize exactly what EOS can help a business to accomplish there, just to kind of emphasize that there.
Yeah, EOS is just about focusing. It's about getting your business focused on the business goals, identifying the goals, making sure that everything that you're doing in the business on a day-to-day basis is helping with those goals, so that you're not getting sidetracked, you're not off in, getting other things done. You make sure you've got the right people are in the right seats, you making sure that, the issues are being covered, your processes are being documented. It just really encompasses just a complete way of how a business, and it's not revolutionary. It's not anything like nothing that we've talked about is, no one has heard of before or tried or even used in their business, but it just, the EOS process is just a way to kind of harness all of it and giving you like tools like, like using 90IO and accountability charts to actually hone in on just making sure that you're just not working, on a, little treadmill of never ending stuff that needs to be done. You get off of it every once in a while and go, okay, what do we want large, big picture?
Yeah. Because it's interesting. You mentioned treadmill. It makes me think that some business owners are like the hamster on the wheel.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're just
absolutely.
going round and round and round. And it makes me think of that. It made me think of that one Star Trek episode when Scotty comes up and says, "Captain, we're going nowhere mighty fast," because they were flying in a circle at warp speed. So, and that's in reality what businesses can be exactly like. It's just they can be stuck in that rut, and the rut could frankly be the size of the Grand Canyon.
Yes. And it takes a lot of energy to just be, at warp speed going in a circle. That's, that's expending a lot of energy when you don't necessarily have to. And then, like I said, working with someone who's an integrator can help a visionary so that they can get off, the circle, and they can do what they do best. Because oftentimes, as an entrepreneur, you just, you want to do everything, I can do that. I can do that. And it's kind of realizing that, you want everyone in the company to be doing their best and what they're the best at. And because that's the best way to harness people. And visionaries are best at thinking ahead. They're best at client communication and getting new clients. And, that's the kind of thing, business development. And so even as an integrator, I work a lot of times with a visionary, and we have like monthly, weekly, same page meetings, so that I'm on the same page as what the visionary wants. The visionary knows what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And, we sync up so that when we come to the leadership team, we're a united front. We know, we have the best interest for the company at heart.
Yeah. And this actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. It leads me back to think about a specific topic I spoke about a few weeks ago about outsourcing some stuff, and we're all guilty of that too, is that we're so eager to do our business. We're so eager to conduct our business. We can think we can do everything, but yet there are people who can do it better. And unfortunately, and I don't know how many big companies or even companies with 20 plus employees, but I'm sure there's some where like those entrepreneurs or whatever are just so confident in their abilities that they just want to save the money on doing the tax return. Right.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And then miss all kinds of credits and deductions that they could have taken if they had worked. It's funny because there's a book by Dan Sullivan called The Who, Not the How. And I read it, and it's just it's very basic again, nothing, but that's what it speaks of. It's like, all right, so you as an entrepreneur, the CEO, the visionary, you could do the tax return, but how much in your time is that going to cost? And would you have been better calling your top 10 clients and asking them, hey, how's your day going? Is there something we can help you with? And getting new business out of that, or strengthening your business relationships, then to open up some sort of tax program and shuffle your way through it. You probably can do it. It's, but then, like you said, you could be missing all kinds of different things because you're not an expert in that. You should stay with what you have expertise in. And I know a lot of times it does cost money. Not all businesses have it. So I'm completely aware of that. You can't just outsource everything and, grab a whole bunch of people, but there are key things that a business needs, tax being one of them, that you need somebody that has the expertise, because you can't, there's nobody that's going to be able to do your job and then also keep up with tax codes and what's the latest and go to a seminar and a webinar. But that's what you do, so you're the expert, and they come to you and they pay you, and then they get the best of the best. And, they know, and they can sleep comfortable at night. I don't know how people who are, kind of wonky on their taxes sleep at night, because that's a scary, situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, Sharon, if someone wants to know more about this integration, or you as an integrator, how do they contact you?
Yeah. We have a website, Entrepreneurial Advisory Institute. So it's www.eai.vision. And you can go there and, contact me directly, learn more about EOS and the process, and, how I go about, helping businesses out. I'm also, I'm on LinkedIn. You can email me at Sharon at eai.vision directly. But yeah, I just love to talk about EOS. You can come to me with no idea of, if you want to use it, but I just love talking about it, and I love helping people. Even for smaller businesses, Gino now has it's called Entrepreneurial Leap book. And it's for people who are just deciding if they want to become an entrepreneur. So that's a book. And then he's got a bunch of like different surveys and quizzes you can take. So if you're just deciding that, what do I want to do? What business do I want to be in? Is this something I want to do? That's another avenue that you can use and go to. And I can help you find those resources.
Okay, great. Well, Sharon, it's been a fabulous conversation here, been so informative. I know the listeners will find this just so useful in recognizing that they may need some help with their business. And certainly we got the right person for them to go to get that help there, because you can help them with the traction part. I can help them with the tax part. So
absolutely,
we can work together on that. So again, if you have any questions for Sharon, you're welcome to, we're going to post her email and website in the links for this broadcast, as well as you can contact me, Marcelino, here at successcashtracksfinancial.com, or give me a call, 844-394-4287, or visit, of course, cashtracksfinancial.com to schedule your free mutual exploration session, as well as you want to get in contact with Sharon. I can help you do that as well, so that we can get your business on traction and really getting some good profit. And of course, as I talk about, take care of the taxes as well. So
absolutely.
Again,
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharon. It's been fabulous. And I thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Tax Answers Advisor with Marcelino Dodge.